The discovery of 4 centuries, Earth had been a forgotten speck in the universe, overshadowed by mighty civilizations that roamed the stars. Its blue skies, vast oceans, and rich landscapes held no interest for the advanced alien species that dominated the galaxy. To them, Earth was nothing more than a primitive planet, still crawling through its early stages of development. The otherworldly beings dismissed Earth as insignificant, believing humans were still too weak and unorganized to challenge anyone, let alone the most powerful species in the galaxy. At the heart of the galaxy, a coalition of aliens ruled over thousands of star systems. They had developed incredible technology, leaving the younger civilizations in the dust. They didn't believe there was any threat to their dominance. Their arrogance ran deep, and they had no idea that Earth had been quietly preparing for this day. The humans, too, had been watching the stars for years. They had always known that their time would come. Beneath the surface of their peaceful society, a select group of humans had worked tirelessly, preparing a hidden force that would one day surprise the universe. And that day was approaching. In the depths of a remote military base, far from the eyes of the world, scientists and engineers worked in secret. For decades, they had been building a Starship 1, powerful enough to reach the stars and capable of defending Earth from any threat. It wasn't just a ship, it was a symbol of humanity's potential. If Earth ever had to fight, this Starship would be its sword, its shield, and its answer to the galaxy's underestimation. One day, as the alien coalition continued to expand its empire, something strange happened. A faint signal, one they had never anticipated, reached their communications systems. It wasn't a distress signal, nor was it a message from any known civilization. It was a signal unlike any they had ever encountered. Curious, they tried to decipher it, thinking it was a glitch or a random transmission. But they were wrong. The signal came from Earth. At first, the aliens dismissed it as a mistake. They assumed the humans had no idea what they were doing and couldn't possibly have the means to send such a sophisticated signal. Earth was still too young, they thought. It was impossible for a planet that had just started exploring the stars to send a message that could cross vast distances in space. But the signal wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. Humanity had been preparing, and now the time had come to announce their presence to the galaxy. Hidden beneath Earth's surface, the Starship had been activated, its systems humming to life for the first time. The aliens watched in disbelief as the signal grew stronger. Something was happening on Earth, something they hadn't anticipated. Still, they believed the humans were incapable of much. Their civilization might have reached the stars, but they still didn't know how to properly wield such power. The aliens laughed at the idea that Earth could become anything more than a forgotten planet. Meanwhile, on Earth, no one was aware of the aliens' growing concern. The government, the military, and the general public had no idea that their world was about to change forever. But there was one group that knew, hidden in the shadows. The select group of human engineers and military leaders had been preparing for this very moment. The Starship, which had been under construction for decades, was finally ready. It was not just a warship, but the pinnacle of human engineering and scientific achievement. This was the ship that would prove the galaxy wrong. This was the ship that would show the universe that Earth wasn't just a helpless planet. It was a force to be reckoned with, as the aliens in the galaxy continued their exploration and expansion. They remained oblivious to the awakening on Earth. They continued to underestimate the humans, dismissing their signal as an anomaly, not understanding. the power they had just awoken. But deep within the human underground base, the engineers made the final adjustments. The Starship, which had been quietly built over the years, now stood ready to rise. It was about to make its presence known. The first phase of the plan was simple. Humanity needed to show that it could not be ignored. It had to send a message, loud and clear. The signal they had sent was just the beginning. The real message was going to be delivered by the Starship itself. The time for preparation was over. The time for hiding was over. The Starship would soon take flight, and humanity would prove that it was not just a primitive race, it was a force to be respected. Meanwhile, the aliens in the galaxy continued to laugh at the thought of Earth as anything more than a distant, unimportant world. They thought they had all the time in the universe to conquer, to expand, and to secure their position at the top. But what they didn't know was that the moment they dismissed Earth was the moment they sealed their fate. The signal from Earth wasn't a cry for help, it was a warning. And now, as the Starship powered up, the galaxy would see just how wrong they had been about humanity. The galaxy was about to find out that Earth was not as young or weak as they had believed. It had been quietly preparing for this moment, and the aliens would soon face the consequences of underestimating Earth. As the engines of the Starship roared to life, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The world's fate rested on the shoulders of those who had kept their secret for so long. The time for discovery was over. The time for action had arrived. The awakening, the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Earth, still thought of as a backwater planet, was ready to unveil a power that the universe had never seen before. The aliens, confident in their overwhelming superiority, carried on their dominance, blind to the storm brewing beneath the surface of Earth. They believed they were invincible, with no need to worry about such a seemingly insignificant planet. On Earth, the hidden team of military strategists and scientists worked tirelessly behind closed doors, knowing that their moment was nearing. They had never imagined that their Starship, still in its final stages of preparation, would soon have to face a galactic army. But they had prepared for the worst, and now they would unleash the greatest weapon humanity had ever crafted. The world may have been unaware, but the hidden few were making history. Deep within the underground command center, the final checks were being made. The massive Starship, now fully operational, was ready for launch. It had cost everything to build, using years of research, technology, and resources from the human race. This was humanity's last stand. If the ship succeeded, Earth would know, longer be dismissed. If it failed, the galaxy would become Earth's tomb. The human engineers and military leaders, dressed in their combat uniforms, stood in silence as they watched the control panels flicker to life. The Starship's engines roared with an energy never before seen on Earth. It wasn't just any ship, it was a masterpiece, a symbol of human innovation and unity. It represented a species that had risen from a single tiny planet to challenge the very heart of the galaxy. With one final command, the doors of the hidden base opened, and the Starship slowly emerged from its shelter as it soared into the sky. Humans across the globe, completely unaware of what was unfolding, continued their daily lives. They had no idea that their world was about to change forever. The ship ascended above the clouds, rising higher and higher, leaving behind a trail of fire and smoke. It wasn't just a spaceship, which was a statement. Earth was no longer content with being overlooked. It was time to show the universe that humanity was not weak. It was time to show them that Earth, once considered insignificant, had finally arrived. But the alien coalition, still ignorant of the threat approaching, laughed at the idea of Earth fighting back. They had intercepted the signal and dismissed it as a harmless anomaly. No one, they believed, could ever challenge their control. And so they continued their expansion, continuing to crush any resistance in their path. The human starship, now in orbit, silently observed the alien fleets. These fleets were unlike anything Earth had ever seen, massive, powerful, and numerous. Yet the humans were not afraid. They knew what they had, and what they had was enough. In the heart of the alien empire, leaders of the coalition gathered, discussing their next conquests. They spoke of new worlds to be colonized and systems to be dominated, all while ignoring the small blip that had once been Earth. Little did they know that the planet they had dismissed was now preparing to strike. The time had come for the galaxy to learn the truth about Earth. The signal wasn't a cry for help, nor was it a mistake. It was a warning. Humanity wasn't here to negotiate or plead for peace. They were here to fight. As the Starship maneuvered through space, its systems calibrated for battle, the humans aboard prepared for what would be the fight of their lives. The strategy was simple: hit fast, hit hard, and leave no doubt that Earth was not to be underestimated. The captain of the Starship, a seasoned military leader, addressed the crew, his voice calm but filled with a quiet strength. "We're not just defending Earth," he said. "We're showing the galaxy what we're capable of. We're proving that the people of Earth won't be forgotten. It's time to show them the power we've been hiding." On the command deck, the crew worked in perfect synchronization, each knowing their role, each focused on the task ahead. As they approached the first alien fleet, their sensors began to pick up on the true scale of the enemy's strength. The alien ships were enormous, each one, bristling with weapons designed to annihilate anything that stood in its path. But the humans didn't hesitate. The Starship locked onto its first target, a colossal alien warship that had been patrolling the outer reaches of their empire. The crew launched their first strike, sending a pulse of energy that tore through the enemy vessel with terrifying precision. The blast was so powerful that the alien ship didn't even have time to retaliate. It was gone in an instant. The galaxy's power structure was beginning to change. The first of many alien fleets was decimated by a force they didn't understand. Human force, one they had long believed to be nothing but a weak, primitive species. But now they were facing the wrath of a species that had been preparing in secret for centuries. As the battle raged on, the first message was sent across the galaxy, not in words, but in the aftermath of humanity's powerful strikes. Earth was no longer the underdog. Earth was here to stay, and it was more dangerous than anyone could have ever imagined. The awakening had begun. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. The first strike the universe had just begun to realize the truth. Earth, the planet they had once dismissed as nothing more than a speck of dust in the vast cosmos, was now proving itself to be a force to be reckoned with. The once quiet world, which had spent centuries watching the stars in silence, had awoken from its slumber and was now preparing to show the galaxy its true power. The alien coalition, still reeling from the destruction of their first fleet, struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. Their superior technology, vast numbers, and centuries of dominance had been undone in a matter of moments by a single human ship. They had underestimated Earth, but now the cost of their arrogance was becoming painfully clear. In the heart of the alien empire, leaders scrambled to find answers. What had they missed? How had a planet with no significant technological history managed to produce a weapon capable of devastating their fleets? They demanded more information, but it was too late. The human starship was already making its way toward the heart of the alien coalition. Back on Earth, the crew of the starship could feel the weight of their mission. They had just made their first strike, but it was only the beginning. The galaxy would now know that humanity was not to be underestimated. And yet, despite their early success, the crew knew that the most dangerous battles were yet to come. Captain Sarah Hayes, the leader of the human starship, stood on the command deck. Her eyes focused on the vast expanse of space ahead. The stars were scattered like diamonds in the dark, and the ship's sensors showed that the alien fleets were already on the move, regrouping and preparing for retaliation. There was no turning back now. Earth had thrown the first punch, and the universe was about to respond. "We've sent our message," Captain Hayes said, her voice calm but filled with an undeniable sense of determination. "But now, we need to finish what we started. They'll come at us with everything they have, but we will not back down." The crew nodded in unison. They had trained for this moment, and they knew what they had to do. The next step would be critical. The aliens wouldn't make the same mistake again, but neither would humanity. This was a battle for survival, a battle to prove that Earth could not be crushed or ignored. As the starship hurtled through space, they picked up signals from the alien fleets, their movements erratic but coordinated. The aliens were in full retreat, but they wouldn't stay on the defensive for long. Humanity had made its mark, but the war was far from over. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared, a signal that they were about to enter a dangerous zone. A massive alien fleet was waiting in the darkness, its ships looming like monstrous shadows. These weren't just any ships, these were the elites of the alien coalition, the ones who had never been defeated before. They had come to crush Earth's rebellion once and for all. The human starship had no choice but to engage. The weapons systems powered up, and the crew braced themselves for the battle ahead. They knew the stakes. If they lost, Earth would fall, and the galaxy would remain under the aliens' iron grip. But if they won, Earth would rise as the new power in the universe. Captain Hayes gave the order, and the ship's engines roared to life. The starship launched into the heart of the alien fleet, its weapons firing with deadly precision. The first strike was a direct hit, obliterating the lead alien vessel before it could even fire a shot. The humans were fast, agile, and relentless. The alien ships, while powerful, were slow to adapt to the speed and unpredictability of the human ship. Explosions filled the void of space as the human starship tore through the enemy's defenses. Alien warships disintegrated in bursts of light, their massive forms reduced to nothingness by the superior firepower of humanity's weaponry. The battle was brutal, but humanity was holding its own. The aliens, who had once thought Earth weak and insignificant, were now realizing the cost of their overconfidence. The starship wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol. Every time it struck, it wasn't just a blow to the alien fleets. It was a message. Earth was no longer a helpless planet. It was fighting back with everything it had. But the alien leaders, though shaken, weren't ready to admit defeat. They unleashed their own weapons, more powerful than anything they had used before. Waves of energy shot from their ships, ripping through space with terrifying force. But the human starship dodged and weaved, its crew working in perfect harmony to avoid the incoming attacks. "We can't keep this up forever," one of the crew members shouted as the alien ships continued to bombard them. "We don't have to," Captain Hayes replied, her voice calm but fierce. We've got the upper hand now. We just need to finish them off with a final, decisive move. The human starship unleashed its most powerful weapon, an energy blast that tore through the heart of the alien fleet. The shockwave rippled through space, causing ships to explode in a chain reaction. The aliens were thrown into chaos, their forces scattered and broken. As the dust settled, the human starship stood victorious, its crew breathing a collective sigh of relief. The first major strike had been won, but the war was far from over. Earth had made its mark, but the true test was yet to come. Captain Hayes turned to her crew, her expression resolute. We've shown them what we're capable of, but this isn't over. We have to keep fighting. We have to show the galaxy that Earth will never be underestimated again. The galaxy had just witnessed the beginning of humanity's rise. What started as a simple message had now become a battle for survival. And Earth was proving that it was not just a forgotten planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. The revelation, the dust of the previous battle had barely settled in the vastness of space when the true magnitude of the conflict became apparent. The alien fleets that had once looked unstoppable now lay shattered and disorganized, their superiority nothing more than a hollow boast in the face of humanity's newfound might. Earth, which had been dismissed as weak and insignificant, had sent a clear message to the universe. Never again would it be underestimated. But while the humans celebrated their victory, they knew the war was far from over. The galaxy's power structure had shifted, but it was far from a done deal. The alien coalition, though shaken, was far from defeated. Leaders from across the alien empire rallied their forces in secret, preparing for their next strike. Their arrogance, once so sure, had now been replaced by a seething anger. The humiliation they had suffered would not be forgotten. And when they came back, they would come back harder. Back on Earth, the mood was tense. The crew of the Starship had delivered their first decisive blow, but they knew the enemy would return, and they would return stronger. Humanity, once thought to be a minor player in the galactic stage, had now earned the attention of every major power in the universe. They were no longer just a footnote in the galactic history books. They were the ones making the next chapter. Captain Sarah Hayes stood on the command deck, staring out into the cold, silent abyss of space. Her mind raced with possibilities. What would the next move be? Could Earth truly hold its own in the face of such overwhelming opposition? And what other secrets had the galaxy been hiding that they hadn't yet uncovered? The ship's sensors suddenly began picking up something, an anomaly, unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't an alien fleet, not yet, but it was something big. Captain, one of the officers called out, pulling her from her thoughts. We've detected a massive energy surge coming from deep within the alien-controlled sectors. Is it a fleet? She asked, her voice calm but with a hint of urgency. No, Captain, it's something else. It's more like a weapon. The words hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. The aliens had weapons, yes, powerful ones. But could this be something beyond anything they had already used? Something they had been hiding, something they had yet to reveal. Prepare for anything, she commanded. Get the crew ready. Whatever this is, we can't let it catch us off guard. As the crew worked feverishly to track the source of the anomaly, the tension in the ship's command center grew. Whatever the aliens had up their sleeves, humanity was going to need everything it had to survive. Hours passed, and then, without warning, the threat revealed itself in the most unimaginable way. From deep within the alien-controlled region of space, a massive, swirling vortex of energy appeared, a weapon of unimaginable scale. It was as if the very fabric of space itself was being torn apart. The sheer power radiating from the anomaly was staggering. It was as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The human starship moved into position, but the vortex was growing, expanding with alarming speed. The alien fleet, long scattered, had reassembled and was now converging on the anomaly's location. They were coming for humanity with a force unlike any the universe had ever seen. "Captain," an officer called out, "the anomaly is destabilizing. If we get too close, it could pull us in." "We don't have a choice," Sarah replied, her voice cold with determination. "We can't let them control this. We go in." With a calculated precision, the human starship advanced toward the anomaly. The crew worked in a synchronized frenzy, preparing for whatever they might face. As they neared the energy vortex, the true scale of the threat became horrifyingly clear. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a weapon capable of warping the fabric of reality itself. The alien coalition had harnessed the power to collapse stars, creating black holes, bending space and time to their will. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very existence of the universe. The alien coalition was attempting to harness this destructive force to dominate the galaxy completely, erasing any resistance from existence. Earth, the last defiant planet, had no choice but to challenge this force or face annihilation. "We can't fight this with our conventional weapons," Sarah said, her voice unwavering. "But if we can get close enough, we can overload their energy core and reverse the anomaly. It's our only chance." The crew looked at each other, their faces a mixture of fear and resolve. It was a desperate plan, perhaps the most desperate humanity had ever attempted. But it was all they had. As the starship closed the distance, Sarah ordered a full power charge to the ship's engines. The ship lurched forward as if it was being pulled by an unseen hand, the gravity of the anomaly threatening to tear them apart. The crew held their breath as they approached the core of the anomaly, their weapon systems fully charged and ready. "Captain," a crew member called out, his voice strained with the pressure, "we're at the heart of the vortex. It's now or never." Sarah made the final decision. Activate the overload sequence now. The ship's energy systems roared to life as a surge of power shot through the hull. The core of the anomaly began to shudder, the raw energy reaching a critical mass. In a flash of blinding light, the human starship unleashed its full destructive potential, sending a shockwave of energy through the anomaly. The fabric of space around them twisted violently. For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze. The universe seemed to hold its breath as the galaxy's fate hung in the balance. Then, with a deafening explosion, the anomaly collapsed inward. The vast energy field that had once threatened to consume everything in its path disappeared in an instant, leaving only the calm, cold emptiness of space. The crew of the human starship stared in disbelief at the aftermath. The alien fleet had been obliterated in the explosion, their ships scattered across the cosmos in a million pieces. The galactic superweapon had been neutralized. Humanity had done the impossible, but as they celebrated their victory, Sarah Hayes knew the truth. Earth had just scratched the surface of a universe teeming with dangers far beyond their comprehension. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was only just beginning its journey. One victory didn't mean the war was over, it was only the beginning, as the starship pulled back into the safety of deep space. Sarah stood at the command deck, looking out into the stars. Earth had proven its power, but the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would no longer be a forgotten world. They had shown their power. They had revealed their strength, and the galaxy would remember.